Have you ever studied for hours, highlighting page after page, only to wake up the next morning and feel like your brain was wiped clean? You read the same paragraph 3 times, and somehow, nothing sticks. Now here's the strange part. In Japan, students routinely memorize over 2,000 kanji characters and still recall them years later. Some people even report days where they sleep only 5 hours, yet feel more alert than after 8. So what's going on here? What if the problem isn't your intelligence or your discipline, but the rhythm you're forcing your brain to follow? Here's the uncomfortable truth most people never hear. Your brain is designed to forget. Forgetting isn't a flaw. It's a filter. If your brain kept everything you read, every notification, every random fact, it would overload and shut down. So it deletes information that isn't used, retrieved, or timed correctly. That's why you can study intensely at night and still wake up feeling foggy. And that's why sleeping longer doesn't always mean feeling more rested. Japanese learning culture approaches this differently. Instead of forcing longer hours, they synchronize habits with how the brain actually works. Many students start their day by stepping outside into natural light and doing just 10 minutes of light movement. Research shows this alone can increase memory recall by up to 20%. Before learning anything new, they briefly recall what they studied yesterday. Not reread it, but retrieve it from memory. Meals follow the principle of hara, eating only until 80% full, keeping energy stable instead of crashing. And sleep is treated as a biological cycle, not a number on a clock. The result isn't more effort. It's better timing, better cues, and less resistance inside the brain. Imagine a typical morning for a Japanese student. There's no rush to immediately sit down and grind. The first step is surprisingly simple. They step outside. Natural morning light hits the eyes and tells the brain, it's time to wake up. This light suppresses melatonin and allows cortisol, the hormone responsible for alertness and focus, to rise naturally. Without this signal, your brain stays half asleep, no matter how much coffee you drink. Many students pair this with 10 minutes of light movement, walking, stretching, or gentle exercises, not intense workouts, just enough to get blood flowing. Studies show that even this small amount of movement can boost memory recall by around 20%. It's not about fitness, it's about priming the brain. Only after this do they sit down to study, and here comes a crucial difference. Instead of opening a textbook and reading new material, they start by asking themselves questions. What did I study yesterday? What do I still remember? This is active recall. By pulling information out of the brain before adding anything new, neural pathways are reactivated and strengthened. Even remembering incorrectly helps, because the brain becomes aware of what needs reinforcement. Many students turn this into a quiet ritual. Organizing the desk, brewing tea, opening a notebook, these small actions may look trivial, but they signal identity. I am entering learning mode. Learning doesn't begin with force. It begins with alignment, light, movement, memory, and calm. Imagine a typical morning for a Japanese student. There's no rush to immediately sit down and grind. The first step is surprisingly simple. They step outside. Natural morning light hits the eyes and tells the brain it's time to wake up. This light suppresses melatonin and allows cortisol, the hormone responsible for alertness and focus, to rise naturally. Without this signal, your brain stays half asleep, no matter how much coffee you drink. Many students pair this with 10 minutes of light movement, walking, stretching, or gentle exercises, not intense workouts, just enough to get blood flowing. Studies show that even this small amount of movement can boost memory recall by around 20%. It's not about fitness, it's about priming the brain. Only after this do they sit down to study, and here comes a crucial difference. Instead of opening a textbook and reading new material, they start by asking themselves questions. What did I study yesterday? What do I still remember? This is active recall. By pulling information out of the brain before adding anything new, neural pathways are reactivated and strengthened. Even remembering incorrectly helps, because the brain becomes aware of what needs reinforcement. Many students turn this into a quiet ritual. Organizing the desk, brewing tea, opening a notebook. These small actions may look trivial, but they signal identity. I am entering learning mode. Learning doesn't begin with force. It begins with alignment, light, movement, memory, and calm. Most people believe learning means putting information in, so they reread notes, they highlight sentences, they watch the same video again and again. It feels productive, but it's mostly passive. And passive learning creates an illusion of understanding, not real memory. Japanese students rely on a different principle. You remember by trying to remember? This is known as the testing effect or active recall. Instead of rereading, they close the book and ask simple questions. What are the main ideas? How would I explain this to someone else? When you struggle to retrieve information, your brain treats it as important. Even when you get it wrong, the correction strengthens the memory more than rereading ever could. They combine this with spaced repetition. Rather than cramming, they revisit the same material in short bursts. On day 1, day 2, day 4, and day 7. Each repetition tells the brain, this matters, keep it. This approach fits perfectly with the Japanese philosophy of Kaizen. Improving by just 1% each day, instead of trying to master everything at once, students focus on tiny, consistent gains. One kanji, one concept, one clear question answered well. Even study sessions follow rhythm, not endurance. A common structure is 40 minutes of focused work, followed by 10 minutes of rest. During the break, they don't scroll endlessly. They stand up, breathe, stretch, or look outside. And there's one rule that keeps the system alive. Never miss twice. Skipping a session once is human. Skipping twice is how habits disappear. Learning becomes a system, not a battle of willpower. You've probably experienced this paradox yourself. One night you sleep 8 hours and wake up exhausted. Another night you sleep 5 or 6 hours and somehow feel clear, alert, even sharp. This isn't luck, it's biology. Sleep doesn't work like a battery that simply fills up the longer you plug it in. It works in cycles, usually about 90 minutes long. Each cycle moves through light sleep, deep sleep, and REM sleep, the stage where memory consolidation happens. When you wake up in the middle of a cycle, especially during deep or REM sleep, your brain feels heavy and disoriented. That's sleep inertia. It doesn't matter how long you slept. If you woke up at the wrong moment, you'll feel drained. Japanese sleep culture focuses less on total hours and more on sleep quality and timing. Many people naturally structure sleep in multiples of 90 minutes, waking at the end of a cycle, instead of forcing the alarm. Recovery also begins before sleep. The principle of hara hachi, eating until only 80% full, prevents the heavy food coma that steals mental clarity and disrupts rest. A lighter body allows the brain to recover faster. Some students also review material for just 5 to 10 minutes before bed, not intense studying. Simply recalling key ideas. During sleep, the brain reorganizes and strengthens those memories in the background. And then there's light. Screens, notifications, endless scrolling, all delay melatonin and confuse the brain into thinking it's still daytime. Japanese routines emphasize dim lighting, quiet transitions, and clear separation between learning and rest. Sleep isn't downtime. It's where learning is completed. There's a subtle shift that changes everything. Most people say, I'm trying to study more. Japanese learning culture quietly asks a different question. Who am I becoming through these habits? Instead of relying on motivation, they build identity through repetition. When you show up every day, even for a short session, your brain begins to see learning as part of who you are, not something you force yourself to do. The language changes from "I have to study" to "I'm the kind of person who learns quickly." This identity shift removes resistance. You no longer debate whether to study. You simply act in alignment with who you believe you are. One powerful habit is teaching immediately after learning. Explaining a concept out loud, writing a short summary, or sharing it with someone else forces your brain to organize information clearly. If you can teach it simply, you truly understand it. Equally important is silence. Between study sessions, Japanese routines allow space. Short walks, quiet moments, even boredom. This is when the brain restructures information, much like roots growing underground before a plant appears above the surface. Progress often feels invisible at first, but just like Kaizen, these small, consistent actions compound. You don't become a fast learner by pushing harder. You become one by designing a life that makes learning inevitable. When you look at the Japanese approach to learning and health, a clear pattern emerges. They don't chase intensity, they build alignment. Morning light and gentle movement wake the brain naturally. Active recall and spaced repetition tell the brain what truly matters. Kaizen turns progress into something small, calm, and sustainable. Eating until 80% full preserves energy. Sleeping in rhythm, not just in hours, completes the learning process. And identity turns effort into habit. None of this requires studying longer. It requires studying smarter and living in sync with how your brain works. So tomorrow, don't try to change everything. Choose one small action. Take a 10-minute walk before studying. Recall yesterday's lesson before opening anything new. Turn off your phone a little earlier tonight and ask yourself one final question. What would change if you truly became a fast learner, instead of just trying to learn fast?